What's next for Syria is really everyone in the region is asking the same question. There are positive steps to point to, but at the same time, there's a major destabilizing factor, and those are the Israeli strikes. If you consider that there are thousands of people going back from Lebanon to Syria, there are still many millions that are waiting to see how things shape up in terms of stability and security. I'm Zein Basravi, a senior correspondent, and between us, I've never been this unsure about what comes next for Syria and the region. So when we got the news that Bashar al-Assad's government had fallen, more than half a century of this single family dynastic rule had come to a swift close, we began making our way to the Masna border crossing between Lebanon and Syria. And on the way, we encountered, border town after border town, displaced communities of Syrians who had been living there, started to come out onto the street and just started to have these impromptu celebrations. They were holding Syrian flags, they were all chanting, singing, raising up the Syrian flag as a kind of victory that they'd finally achieved after, more than a decade of living displaced. There were tears of no doubt relief that there had finally been some kind of transition, some change, some forward momentum in their country, a country they'd been kept away from for so long. This was people that had been forced to suppress any sort of expression and live in this kind of limbo that were now out onto the streets. They wanted their voices to be heard, and they wanted to remind people that they can now raise their voices, but so many of their people, friends and family members, have had their voices snuffed out. Everyone we've been talking to has said similar things. They're worried, the situation is uncertain, but beyond all of that, there's a level of relief, there's a level of hope. They're glad to be able to go back home. One man we spoke to is a doctor, he's a surgeon, and he said he's been living in Lebanon for over a decade, and his father died before the war, and the one thing he's gonna do as soon as he gets back to Damascus is visit his father's grave. And really at the end of the day, everyone going back is telling us the same thing. They're just looking forward to being back home, being with their families, and rebuilding their lives as Syrians in Syria.